of the day. And of course,
It's Friday.
it's Friday. Last trading day. Markets seem to be much greener, so everybody's in a much better mood. But this is a conversation I'm really excited to have. We've got Andy Lee from Interactive Game Technologies, ticker symbol BETS. He's got a background in managing sports books, which to me is just wildly fascinating and interesting. I want to get into how he manages risk and how that whole world works. So buckle up. Let's get. Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much. Great to be here.
Okay, so let's get this sort of started right at the top here. You're with Interactive Game Technologies, which is a newly listed sort of online gambling company here in Canada. It's a name that I think not everybody's that familiar with. Sort of the story's just starting to roll out. First off, when this deal first got pitched to me, I was just so fast. I'm a former math teacher, so just this idea of how you're managing risk in terms of managing a sports book, I just find super interesting and fascinating. So maybe if you could start by telling us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I've been involved in the gambling industry, in particular the online gambling industry, for over 20 years now. I started off the first 10 years of my life as an equity analyst, covering particularly gambling stocks in the City of London. I was involved in the IPO of Party Gaming, for example, the IPO of Sporting Bet, and many other deals in the space. So that was the first 10 years of my life. I was really commentating on these stocks and putting recommendations on them. I then moved into industry in 2009 and have worked for a number of gambling companies in the space. So I started off with William Hill. I was the managing director of the online business. We were based in Gibraltar. I spent 4 or 5 years there, grew the business 70% from a gaming revenue of around about 300 million to over 550 million in 4 years. We became, the dominant operator on mobile, just at a time when mobile was rapidly expanding. I then worked for the Stars Group, which your listeners may recognize PokerStars. I was looking after the sportsbook for the Stars Group, which was called BetStars, but in the US, the brand is now FoxBet. I left them in the end of 2018 and was looking for new opportunities in the space. And I very much wanted to get involved in the North American market or other more nascent and fast-growing online gambling markets. And Interactive Game Technologies offered not only a smaller, nimbler, new opportunity for me, it also wanted to target those high growth and nascent markets. And it also had a different slant on how it was going to tackle the market. So instead of using traditional forms of marketing like many of the existing gambling operators out there, it wanted to tap much more into social media. It wanted to leverage off and partner with influencers, which we believe is a very niche and unique way of looking at entering into this market. Some of your audience may know, influencers can, if used properly, generate 10, 20 times the kind of ROI that you get from traditional forms of marketing. So the whole package looked very, very interesting to me, and it's been really exciting, and the future continues to look exciting.
Okay, so we actually announced that you were coming on yesterday, and one of the questions we got was the history with BETS, Interactive Game Technologies, and Dan Bilzerian. Can you speak to that? Is he still involved, and sort of what's the story there?
No, he's not actively involved in acting as an influencer for us at the moment. No.
Okay. So what are the kind of influencers that you guys would target then that I assume that you're trying to find influencers who have this sort of following that would make sense for people who are going to download an app, put in their credit card, and start gambling. How do you guys assess, or what kind of influencers sort of meet that sort of framework that would bring you that ROI?
Yeah, I mean, so you can use influencers for their massive reach, or you can use them for like a niche following. So we're not restricting ourselves just to massive influencers. You also want smaller, nano, micro influencers as well. What we really need from a partner in this space is someone who is genuinely authentic. They have to either love sports or love gambling. If you love gambling, you probably love sports anyway. But there needs to be this relevancy. There needs to be this authenticity around the influencer to really capture their audience's imagination, and that's what we want. We want a brand that the influencer loves to promote. We want their audience, their followers, to love what they're talking about and really resonate with it. So we want a mutually beneficial relationship with the influencer, because they want to increase their social clout. If we're giving them interesting stuff to talk about, which I think sports and gambling is personally, then that will increase their social clout and social following as well.
Okay, the way you're speaking about that there makes me think that you guys are seeking like one big influencer to sort of be the brand ambassador, or are you guys looking for sort of a portfolio of brand ambassadors?
More a portfolio. Certainly in India, the team out there have built up a large portfolio of influencers of varying sizes, such that the reach that they have, or the followers of the influencers that we're using out there, has a cumulative following of over 100 million, which obviously seems like a large number, certainly for someone who's historically based in the UK, but in India, obviously, it's a massive population out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what markets is Interactive Game Technologies in right now?
Yeah, so we're currently live from a sportsbook perspective, we're live in Canada and some other permitted jurisdictions, much smaller. We're live in India, and we're in the process of looking at cementing on a relationship we have with a large US commercial partner, with entering into the US market, which has obviously grown rapidly since PASPA was repealed in 2018. There are 15 states that are currently live with a form of online gambling, mostly sports betting, and it's been growing very rapidly. And we're looking at commercial opportunities with this US based partner to tap into this market.
Okay, so let's get into the actual running a sports book.
Yeah.
Let's say that you and we decide we're gonna start a sports book. We get whatever licensing is necessary, and I'm just gonna throw a random number at you. We have $1 million to help us manage the risk.
Yeah.
How do you actually go about? Because I assume that if you get your first 1,000 bets, or your first 100 bets even, you are going to be managing that risk, so that if for whatever reason you get a string of bad luck, somebody wins a big parlay or something, your capital doesn't just get wiped out. How I'm totally fascinated by this world. How do you go about managing risk on a sports book? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and the reality was, decades ago it was actually quite hard, because things weren't in real time, so you didn't necessarily know in real time what your risk was on a book. The reality now is, with the advent of technology, the information we have is real time, so we can see our exposure, or liability to particular bets or markets in real time. So we know where we are at any given moment in time, which is important. Secondly, we have limits on the type of bets we will take to lose. So, we won't be accepting bets that could win, $20 million. So we managed to cap our risk that way from a volume perspective. And that's important when you think of a third point, that we're not after big whales. We're after the recreational gambler out there. We're looking, our median size bet is probably around 20 Canadian dollars. It's not a huge amount. And certainly we're looking for volume such that we end up with a diversified book. So, all of our customers aren't simply on one side such that we're massively exposed. So the bigger you get, the easier it is to manage risk, which I think is your point about the first 100 bets. But we don't take really high exposure to a single event, to be honest. And as I say, given everything's real time, we know where we are on any event at any particular moment in time. So contrary to popular belief, we don't hedge, we don't lay off risk with other bookmakers.
Really? I always hear people from the space say that, so I'm surprised to hear that. No, so there isn't. I always just would have assumed that you had you'd go that there was some sort of marketplace for all of the sports books to work together. And
I mean, when William Hill was a big company when I used to work there, and you could from time to time, you might lay off risk sometimes, but it was very unusual. At the end of the day, all you're doing is giving away margin if you do that. If you believe in the long run that results will even out and you will achieve your theoretical margin, which is effectively what you set your book at, then there's really no point in giving away margin here and there to a third party. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's take a question here. We got Betting Bruiser, who's normally a big cannabis guy, but his roots are clearly in betting. So what will be the biggest profit maker for blitz bets, game of skill like poker or sports betting?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, we're in both at the moment. So in India, for example, we are one of the fastest growing what they call skins on a poker network in India. So the Spartan Poker Network, we happen to have a skin of that poker room. That's growing very rapidly. And, so in the Indian market, that looks like it's sort of looking like the US of the early 2000s when we had the poker boom. And obviously there's a lot of people in India, so the opportunity is sizable. So in India, at the moment, it looks like poker and skill-based games will be the winner. In North America, the other part of the business, sports betting and online gaming is likely to be much bigger than poker. Certainly for us, because as we know, poker is poker is really dependent on liquidity. And I wouldn't sit here and say that we had the biggest legacy brand when it came to a US facing or a Canadian facing poker site. So sports betting and gaming in North America, I think, is going to be the winner.
Funny enough, my producer Chris, who's in the back end sending us all those messages right now, he's based in the Philippines. He says that he claims to know a guy in the Philippines who made millions of dollars betting on cockfighting online.
Really?
Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
I'm skeptical now, Chris, of the likelihood that that story checks out. Okay, so what are some of the stranger things that you've seen show up? Like, do you have access to pretty much put any kind of bet you want on a sports betting, or do the regulations have you can only put up lines on certain things?
Yeah, so it depends which country you are in the world. The UK, for example, is very liberal. You can pretty much put anything you like up. What you can't do, however, is have. So this relates to sports integrity. What you don't want is to have betting on events where the majority of the players are under 18, for example. And that all goes to the integrity of sports. The same in Spain. In America, it does vary a little bit state by state. Certain states do not allow betting on the local college football teams, for example, or college sports. Other states allow pre-match or pre the event betting on college sports, but they don't allow in-play on college sports. So there are varying rules around the world. We could go on forever on the discussions.
So I look at and this was the first when I first sat down with the guys over at Interactive Games. One of the first things I did was we were on a Zoom meeting. I don't think you were on that call, but I pulled up the balance sheet and I said, okay, you guys don't really seem that well capitalized to take on this space. How important is it to have a big balance sheet if you actually want to take a run at running a sports platform?
Yeah, so scale can help. Obviously, marketing isn't cheap in the space, particularly if you want to, sponsor major sports leagues, events, put on ads on a Super Bowl. That doesn't come cheap. But look, given our size, and given how dominant the likes of DraftKings or how big the DraftKings and FanDuel are in the US, I'm not suggesting that that's who we're going to be in the next couple of years. What we're looking at doing is creating a rather different approach to the US market, which is to partner with a large US commercial partner and work with land-based casinos to help them develop their digital online offering. So in short, there are a lot of land-based casinos in the US who will get market access to online gambling by dint of having a land-based casino within a state. Whilst they're very good at running a land-based casino, what they're not used to is running a digital offering. So we are seeking to partner with them and our US partner to help them fund the launch of this digital offering and then run the online management of that offering for them, and then work in tandem with them and collaborate with them, teach their people how to run this business, and then hand it back over to them. So it's a slightly different model. We're kind of looking at it from a B2B2C approach, because I think your audience correctly is saying, look, you need to be hugely capitalized to play with DraftKings in this market. I 100% agree. We are not about to spend $800 million a year on marketing.
Yeah, it's a good question. Chris is trying to send us the videos of the online cockfighting that people bet on in the Philippines. So the model sounds to me an awful lot like, I don't know if you've heard of this little company out of Canada called Shopify. It's actually, I think by market cap now, they might be the largest company in Canada. It sounds a little bit like that, like you're trying to give like land-based casinos the digital tools that they need to run a sports book, and then they're the ones who are theoretically capitalized enough to actually manage that book and that risk. Would that be accurate?
Yes, we're getting into bed with partners who have capital, and we're basically bringing expertise. We've got over 100 years online gambling experience in just the executive management team. We have deep networks of people who we have worked with in the space, many of whom are very keen to get into the American market. Europe has been around, gambling in Europe has been around for 10, 20 years, depending on which country you're in. It's very much maturing. I mean, there's still a bit of growth there, but it's very much maturing, and the regulations are going against the operators. So, the rules around VIP betting, is becoming quite negative. And the US just represents a huge and exciting growth opportunity that a lot of people with experience really want to get involved in. How they get involved in it is less clear to them. We offer a way to do that, and as you say, we're kind of leveraging off the financial strength of other parties to help us enter in that market. But that's just the US, though. That's just the US, right?
Yeah, which I'm a lot more interested in that part. So I'm happy you're speaking to that. This is going to sound maybe like a little bit of an odd question, because I'm sure that everyone's going to try to make themselves sound special, and I just don't know your space at all. And I see this line here from my research assistant Marlene. She has you listed as the former managing director of the sports book for the Stars Group. I feel like that's a really big title, and there's not many people who have managed an online platform sports book of that size. Would that be a fair assumption?
Well, I guess that in any business, there's only one sort of managing director or CEO of it.
But like, how many online sports books would have been the size of the Stars Group globally?
Oh, globally, I mean, it's less than 100. It's probably less than 50. I would imagine, comfortably.
Okay.
I mean, William Hill was big. William Hill was.
William Hill's a lot bigger, I take it.
Well, when I left William Hill, by the time I left there, we were doing the equivalent of $1 billion in revenue in Canadian dollars, and at that time, online, there would have only been one company online that was bigger than that, and that would be Bet365.
So I see you're also a former, not former. You are a chartered accountant. Let me ask you this: what's the journal entry on a sports bet look like?
What do you mean? Sorry, can you clarify?
So there's going to be revenue on one side, and then like, are you just creating liability? Like, when somebody places a bet, is that all revenue?
No. So the industry has stakes or handle, which is the amounts placed by the customers, then net off the payouts to the customers, and that gets you to what we call gross gaming revenue. Then you take off things like bonuses, promotional spend, and then you get to net gaming revenue. So when I say that William Hill, when I left, was doing $1 billion Canadian, we were making about an 8% margin. So we were talking about stakes of, well over 10 billion.
Okay. Got it. So with interactive game technologies, then, I know you guys haven't announced anything, so I maybe shouldn't be asking this, but are you guys going to be seeking to do deals where you'd get to consolidate some of that revenue on your income statement, or is it going to be more of a sort of third party where you're going to get sort of paid for the service? What do you think that structure would look like?
So there'll be fees for the services provided, and then the idea that there would be some valuation at a future date, which we would partake in that upside.
Okay.
So thinking about kind of the valuations of, gambling stocks who are US present and facing at the moment, they're quite eye watering. Yeah, obviously we'd love to take a part, be a part of that. And we think the opportunity in the US is big. The numbers that are coming out of the states that are reporting are in excess of what the original expectations were, which is extremely encouraging. And online gambling, or online gaming, sorry, so iGaming as it's referred to in the US, so casino type products, is off the charts. So in the UK, for example, or other countries, gaming will be slightly larger than sports betting in its size. In the US at the moment, it's 2.5 times the size of the sports betting market. So really strong growth we're seeing there. And the key for sports betting is that you acquire sports betting customers and then you cross sell them onto gaming.
So gaming's like poker.
Well, it's just casino, slots and table games. So blackjack, roulette are the most popular.
Doing that online.
Yeah, poker I would say is a separate category.
It's really interesting. Now, how much of a risk do you think there is? I'm from Ontario, so obviously I've got my biases from just what I know and what I've sort of grown up around. Where my assumption here is that in Ontario, this whole space is probably going to be provincial, like some kind of crown corporation type thing. Is that a big risk, or does that just kind of depend on the individual jurisdiction?
So, are you talking about the opportunity for Canada regulating?
Well, I'm just talking about like wherever because like your plan is to sort of enter all these different states. Do you see a risk that the individual governments are going to run their own sports book, or is Ontario kind of strange like that?
No, I'm hopeful that Ontario will open up and permit a relatively free market where we could have an opportunity in that market. As 40% of the US in terms of GDP and population is obviously the key. It's obviously the key province, but we will be looking very closely at the legislation and trying to take a part in a fully regulated Canadian market as and when it takes place, which hopefully could be later this year, earlier 2021. But we'll have to wait and see how the bills pass. Okay.
Last sort of question here. Do you bet on sports after like you've managed sports books? Do you do any of that, or do you not, or you view it more like an accounting perspective?
No, daily. I started betting in 1981. I was my first bet was on Aldeniti, which ended up being the Grand National winner. So you put your first bet on, you win. That's it. You love it. I love sports. I love gambling, and I love being involved with it from business. It's tremendous. That's why I'm still in the industry.
Are you betting on March Madness?
I'm not, because I'm more a cricket, rugby, football, horse racing kind of guy.
Okay.
I've done a bracket on March Madness. I haven't been betting that much on it. Have you? Who are you backing?
No, well now I'm backing Oral Roberts. You get a 15 seed into the Sweet 16. I'm romantic about the underdogs, I guess. But I try to stay away from sports betting because my problem is that in this is where you guys always get me, is that once I open an account and I put some money in there, I might get way ahead, but then I just do something stupid like place one big bet on something. I'm terrible at managing risk when it comes to the sports betting side. And that's kind of where, like, I usually get lured in. I haven't done it in years, but I'd always get lured in with hey, free $200 if you bet like up to $600 worth of bets. And I'd be like, oh, I could do that. It's got to win like 3 bets. And the next thing I know, I'm up like, $1,500 or something like that. And then I place it all on one like stupid bet because I'm bored on a Sunday afternoon. And then I naturally, to sign up, you got to usually put down $150, $200, and the online casinos that I played with. So I think the one that I always used to use was Bodog or Bet365. But they always end up with my money because I never leave the casino. Because
be consistent. You got to be consistent. Keep it consistent. If you bet $20, keep betting $20. Don't lump it up. Keep going. Keeping the game longer.
Well, you've got me now thinking that I can actually win if I view it more like I view investing, which I'm obsessed with the risk side.
Yep. Look, it's entertainment. It's a game within a game. I love it because it's I'm creating a game within the event that's actually happening. If a team's 30 points clear in NFL, there's not a lot of fun on the outright, but start betting on next touchdown scorer. Start betting on whether they go for 2 points instead of 1. It just makes it more exciting.
What's can I ask you what your biggest sports bet win was? You don't have to give us the number, but
I'll give you the number. I don't bet big. I won £8,500 on a accumulator.
What's an accumulator?
Oh, sorry, a parlay. A parlay.
Parlay. Okay.
It was a five-fold.
So, sorry, how much was that?
£8,500.
£8,500.
So that's probably 14,000 Canadian dollars.
That's for a guy who's worked in sports betting his whole life. That's a relatively modest number.
Yeah, I don't bet big. I'm in it for the enjoyment. You don't gamble outside of your means. It's fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's the craziest parlay you've ever seen? When have you ever seen it actually do any damage to an online sports book?
Well, I mean, we lost. I've lost 13 million sterling in a day before, so that's 20 million Canadian dollars. That was on Boxing Day 2014. So that was a wonderful Christmas present.
Was that on a parlay?
No. That was the whole. All of the favourites won on the Premier League, and we absolutely had a bath. So that was a pretty extreme loss. I've heard of a customer, one of ours, who won £172,000 from a £1 bet. He needed Leyton Orient to draw, and Leyton Orient equalised in the 105th minute, so there was basically 15 minutes of extra time added on. They scored in the 105th minute, and he won £172,000 from £1.
Really?
That's probably the best win. He was a stable boy in England. Wow. He wasn't a stable boy the day after he won it.
Wow.
He thought he'd won £172, and his mum said, no, there's 3 zeros on it.
Okay. That's pretty big payout. Okay, well, Andy, thank you so much for hopping on here. This was fun. I'm really excited to see how this story is going to play out and what the deal structures are going to look like as you guys roll out throughout the US. And hopefully you'll keep coming back on and telling us sort of about how the deal structures are going to look for shareholders. And I'm actually long, by the way. I'm long Interactive Games, in part because I bought into the shell. A friend of mine was the CEO of the former mining company that turned in. when I first heard about this company, I was like, oh, that keeps showing up on my TD account. And my buddy of mine, Michael Dane, was CEO of Fairmont Resources, which was didn't work out so well. It was, I think, like a lithium company or something, and got rolled into now it's a sports betting company, which is actually a lot more interesting to me than a lithium company. But thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you'll keep coming back on as the story continues to play out.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time.
Okay, so quick little disclaimer for our audience. Nothing that we talked about here is a buy or sell recommendation. This is for information and entertainment purposes only. If you're looking for that sort of thing, I suggest you go find somebody who's licensed. We will be back next week. We've actually got a pretty big week lined up. I just found out before the show that we are going to have Bruce Linton joining us next week, which is always a blast. I got to find out more about this cockfighting that my producer Chris says is a thing in the Philippines, because it sounds like an episode of Seinfeld to me. But I hope you all have okay, fine. He's Chris. Why don't you hop on camera here and tell us a little bit about this this cock? Because I'm not just going to throw up a random cockfighting video on a live stream and then suddenly everyone's like, you just like showed a clip of a chicken dying on live internet television. I don't know if Chris is willing to come on camera and talk about it. But he says, never mind. Look, I appreciate everybody who's taking the time to join us today. You could have spent your last half hour staring at any screen, any place in the world, but you chose to spend it with us. I appreciate that. We'll be back next week with lots of great guests. So have a great weekend, and good luck for anybody who's either doing some research on stocks or possibly betting on some sports, i.e., the March Madness that's going on. Lots of fantasy baseballs heating up. That's my thing that I love. So I will see you guys all on Monday. Thanks.